You already know what genuinely nice people look like. You have seen them your entire life. They are the ones who hold the door open behind them, not glancing back to check, just holding it because it's the right thing to do. They remember your coffee order. They laugh at things that aren't quite funny enough to laugh at. They ask how you are and then actually wait for the answer. They apologize when they didn't do anything wrong. They say, "I'm so sorry you're going through that." With their eyes already softening before you finished your sentence, they make everything easier. They smooth rooms. They absorb tension. They don't take up too much space. They're the ones you trust instinctively, not because they've earned it, but because something in you reaches toward them the way a plant reaches toward a window. You've known people like this. You've been grateful for people like this. You may love someone like this right now. What you have never once considered is that the niceness itself is the mechanism. We built this association ourselves. Every culture, every medium, every childhood lesson fused moral worth with pleasant affect. Think of every film where the villain announces their villainy, where nastiness is legible, visible, announced in tone. Think of the social scripts handed to children. Be nice. Say thank you. Don't be difficult. Hey, we didn't teach kindness. We taught performance. We taught everyone around those children to reward the performance as if it were the thing itself. Social media accelerated this. The language of warmth became a currency. The more it is displayed, the more trust it generates. And the more trust it generates, the more useful it becomes. Instagram bios filled with empath, human first, here to lift others up. Comment sections where the nicest sounding reply rises to the top, regardless of what it actually contains. LinkedIn culture, where warmth is deployed as professional. Strategy so efficiently that entire coaching industries now teach it as a skill. We were taught from birth that niceness is the surface evidence of goodness. That if a person makes you feel safe, they probably are safe. That if a person never raises their voice, never takes without offering, never pushes, they lack the capacity for harm. What it actually is a social technology so well calibrated that the people using it most effectively are often completely unaware they are using it at all. In 1998, psychologists Jennifer Harman and Zoe Squires at the University of Colorado began distinguishing between what the literature now calls prosocial behavior and fawn response. The latter first named by therapist Pete Walker, drawing on work by researcher Bessel van der Kolk on trauma adaptation. The fawn response describes a neurological pattern in which individuals suppress authentic internal states and project sustained warmth as a regulatory mechanism, not to benefit others, but to neutralize perceived threat. This is not generosity. It is a survival protocol wearing generosity's clothing. 40 to 60% of adults with childhood trauma histories show persistent fawn response patterns. Van der Kolk. The body keeps the score. 2014, 71% of surveyed manipulation victims in a 2019 journal. A personality study described their manipulator as unusually kind or considerate. The mechanism operates as follows. Agreeableness, one of the big 5 personality dimensions, correlates positively with social trust. Research by William Fleeson at Wake Forest University 2004 has demonstrated that agreeable behavioral displays reliably increase social access. People disclose more, resist less, and lower procedural defenses in the presence of warm affect. The agreeable actor, whether performing consciously or not, gains expanded information and access. What makes this cognitively dangerous is the asymmetry. You believe you are in a reciprocal relationship. You're in a harvesting relationship. The nice person gathers your vulnerabilities, your schedule, your loyalties, your private emotional architecture, while giving back something that costs them very little, the appearance of care. And your brain, shaped by millions of years of social evolution to identify allies through warmth cues, is almost entirely unable to detect the difference. Sacramento, California, 2012. Dee Dee Blanchard was described by everyone who met her as a devoted mother, warm, self-sacrificing. She spoke softly. She smiled easily. She organized fundraisers for her daughter, Gypsy Rose, who she claimed suffered from leukemia, muscular dystrophy, seizure disorders, and developmental delays that left her confined to a wheelchair and cognitively impaired to the level of a 7-year-old. Neighbors brought meals. Churches raised funds. Charitable organizations donated travel. Disney provided wish trips. Medical institutions in multiple states provided free care. Not one of these people suspected anything. Dee Dee was universally described as gentle, as tireless, as the kind of mother you'd want. Gypsy Rose was not ill. She had never been ill. She could walk. She could think. She had been subjected to years of unnecessary medical procedures, feeding tubes, surgical interventions, medication regimens, under the clinical designation Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Now termed factitious disorder imposed on another, Dee Dee had systematically constructed a medical fiction. It's maintained through her warmth, her affect, and the social capital her niceness generated. Every person who trusted her became an instrument. Every institution that responded to her softness became a resource. In 2015, Gypsy Rose participated in Dee Dee's murder. The forensic psychological testimony at trial described Dee Dee's presentation as disarmingly warm, noting that no clinical red flags were raised by any of the dozens of physicians who treated Gypsy Rose over 15 years. 15 years. Dozens of physicians, not one of them looked past the warmth. This is not an isolated case. In 2009, psychologist Harriet Lerner published research on what she termed relational covert control, the use of sustained warmth and agreeableness as a mechanism for managing interpersonal environments without triggering resistance. Lerner's subjects were not clinical populations. They were identified through normal social networks. They were, by all accounts, considered the nicest people in their communities, a landmark. 2017 study in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships by researchers. Kaufman and Stern examined coercive control dynamics in 400 documented intimate partner abuse cases. In 68% of cases, classified as severe coercive control, victims reported the controlling partner as warmer than average at relationship onset and throughout early stages. The control was maintained not through fear, but through the victims' unwillingness to challenge someone who had constructed an identity of kindness. The same pattern appears in institutional settings. Research on high-control religious communities, including studies by Stephen Hassan and Alexandra Stein, consistently identifies warmth and unconditional positive regard as the primary recruitment mechanism. The initial contact with such organizations is almost always described as the nicest people I'd ever met. The warmth is not incidental. It is structural. It is the first wall of the architecture. Across intimate partnerships, medical contexts, religious institutions, and workplace environments, the documented pattern is consistent. Sustained niceness generates lowered guard, expanded disclosure, and a social taboo against challenge. You cannot accuse someone nice of harm without first being perceived as the problem yourself. This is not warmth. This is enclosure, asterisk. Here is where the terror becomes precise. Sustained niceness, the kind that never slips, that adjusts to every room, that calibrates warmth to exactly what each person needs, requires a significant cognitive load. It requires real-time social modeling, reading effect, predicting response, modifying presentation before the other person has consciously registered what they wanted. It requires memory of preferences, of past disclosures, of what worked and what didn't. It requires emotional regulation sophisticated enough to suppress authentic reactions on demand and replace them with performed ones that generate the desired outcome. Research by psychologist Robert Cialdini at Arizona State University detailed, in his foundational work Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion 1984, revised 2006, identifies liking as the single most powerful compliance trigger available to human social actors. We comply with people we like. We resist people we don't. The person who makes everyone like them has therefore achieved something very precise. They have removed resistance as an option. That is not instinct. It is architecture. The most dangerous version of this is not performed. It is internalized. People who have so thoroughly merged their identity with niceness that they experience their own management of others as genuine care. They believe they are kind. They may be right. They are also, simultaneously, extracting compliance, managing perception, and maintaining structural advantage. Both things are true at once. Nice people do not operate in isolation. They operate within systems that are structurally designed to protect them. Solomon Ash's conformity experiments. 1951 demonstrated that individuals will contradict direct sensory evidence when surrounded by a social consensus. The mechanism that stops you from naming what you see, stops you from saying this doesn't feel right, is not stupidity. It is your brain correctly assessing the social cost of dissent. When someone has successfully established a reputation for niceness, that reputation functions as a consensus. Challenging it means challenging everyone who endorses it. Most people don't. In family systems, this is called the identified patient dynamic. The warmest, most self-sacrificing member of a family, the one who keeps everything together, who absorbs everyone's distress, who never says a hard word, is very often the person around whom the most significant dysfunction organizes. Their niceness is load-bearing, holds the system in place. To name it as a problem would require dismantling the story the entire family tells about itself. In workplaces, research on organizational behavior by Dutton and Heafy, 2003, on high-quality connections, found that warm, affirming managers generated stronger team loyalty and also far greater difficulty raising concerns. Teams with the warmest leaders were less likely to report problems upward. The niceness created a psychological barrier to accountability. The social system doesn't enable nice people, despite being functional. It enables them because it is functional. The architecture of trust is the architecture of protection. The conditions producing this behavior are accelerating. The 2023 U.S. Surgeon General's Advisory on Loneliness found that over 50% of American adults report measurable loneliness. Loneliness increases credulity specifically, the tendency to overtrust warm social signals. A person who has been starved of genuine connection does not evaluate warmth carefully. They receive it. Social media has expanded the range of niceness. As a social technology beyond anything previously possible, a person can now construct a reputation for warmth across thousands of people. Simultaneously, none of whom can verify the gap between the performance and the private behavior. The audience for niceness is no longer the village. It is the network. The network never sees the closed door. Economic precarity produces its own pressure. The incentive to be liked, to be indispensable, non-threatening, frictionless, has never been higher in professional contexts. Niceness is increasingly a career survival strategy. We are selecting for it. We are rewarding it. We're building institutions that run on it. The habitat is not shrinking, it is being landscaped. And here is the hardest thing to hold in your mind. All at once, genuinely nice people are not evil. They're not malevolent. Most of them are not even aware. Niceness in its most thorough form is an adaptation. It developed in environments where direct conflict was catastrophic and social. Belonging was the only survival insurance available. The child who learned to read the room, to smooth tension before it broke, to make themselves maximally useful and minimally threatening, that child was doing exactly what the environment required. The behavior encoded, it became identity, became the only self they knew how to be. The problem is that this adaptation is now running in a world that is nothing like the one it was built for. The stakes are different. The scale is different. The mechanisms of social power are vastly more complex. And the behavior which was once a small child trying not to be hurt has become in adult form. A technology that operates on everyone around it, whether its owner intends harm or not. You can understand this completely and still not be safe from it. You can love someone who does this and be completely right to love them and still be in the process of being managed. And here is the mirror, because there is always a mirror. Think of the last time you smiled when you didn't mean it. Think of the last time you said, "Of course, no problem," when the true answer was different. Think of the last time you made someone comfortable at the cost of your own accuracy. Think of what you were trying to prevent. Think of who you were trying to be safe from. You already know what genuinely nice people look like. You see one every morning.